Hey there, EB here. Good Friday to everybody. Lots of ground to cover this week, lots of stuff in state. From an in state standpoint, we had a sentencing of a former USC basketball player, Jamal Bradley, who was hearing impaired. He was a beloved basketball player probably about 15 years ago, I guess, under Dave Odom at that time, was probably the coach, or Darren Horn. And after he graduated, he went to work for Sheriff Leon Lott in the Richland County Sheriff's Department. He was a well known member of the Sheriff's Department, became a resource officer, a school resource officer at Spring Valley High School. And he was often showcased by the Sheriff's Department as somebody who represented the Sheriff's Department well. Turns out that he had some dark skeletons in his closet. Even though he was married with children, he preyed on some of the students. And this week, initially, after Sheriff Lott had really denied that Jamal Bradley had sexual relationships with some of the students at Spring Valley High School, and felt that some of the victims were being untruthful in their allegations, had to admit that Jamal Bradley was a predator. He pled guilty to sexual misconduct with two students. One was a 15-year-old that he had one incident with, and then a 17-year-old who he had a long-term relationship over a number of months, where they had alleged to have had sexual relations. And this week, Jamal Bradley admitted to these crimes. The prosecution, although there was a potential 15-year sentence, did not ask for any prison time. Judge Daniel Coble did not give him any prison time. One of the victims showed up, who was 17 years old, through his lawyer, and his lawyer, Taylor Bell, who happens to be my training partner. He argued that the victim did not want Jamal Bradley to get any prison time. She didn't want him to lose his family, didn't want his two children to be fatherless. Obviously, Judge Coble listened to it, and believe it or not, he was sentenced to probation. The state didn't even ask that he be put on the sexual registry, and Judge Coble, on his own, put him on the sexual registry. I think it was not the right sentence. I think that Jamal Bradley should have gotten some prison time. I think it's a tremendous breach of trust when a school police officer has a relationship with the student, even though she was 17 years old. He's in a fiduciary capacity. Hey, Kim Kovich, good afternoon. He was in a fiduciary capacity. I just don't believe that certainly a 15-year-old can't give consent. A 17-year-old can give consent, but in the disparity of the supervisory relationship of a law enforcement officer and a student, I think that was a poor decision. Last week, obviously, hey, Morgan Sanders, EB here. Last week we had South Carolina win just barely over Old Dominion. In football, Clemson got smoked by Georgia. I think both programs have taken a large step back. Certainly Dabo Swinney has not participated in the transfer portal, nor is he big with the NIL money. A statistic that really shocked me is 33% of the starters last year in the Power 5 conference were transfer students. So Dabo Swinney's going to have to realize that he's going to have to fill some of the gaping needs on his roster by going to the transfer portal, or he's going to end up losing his job. Interesting this week, we had, seems to be the continuing feud between Dick Harpootlian and 5 Points in Columbia. 5 Points, just so everybody knows, is an area near the university that traditionally has had a lot of bars that the students go to. Dick Harpootlian lives nearby in Whaley Garden in a ritzy neighborhood, and Harpootlian has considered it his mission to close down all bars in 5 Points, and he brags about it. Really, that's the basis for him wanting to get into politics a couple years ago. He has failed at every turn. He comes out with big fanfare and says that, I got the license renewal for a particular bar not granted, but all that means is it's the Department of Revenue when a license holder goes to reapply for their alcohol license. If there's any objection by any citizen, the license will be denied, but the establishment can continue to operate until there's an administrative law court hearing heard by an administrative law judge to determine whether the license should be renewed. Harpootlian is arguing that these are bars and not food establishments as required by the Constitution. All of these locations have menus of food. They serve food. Yes, they do serve a lot of alcohol, but it really seems to be a problematic position that Dick Harpootlian is taking, certainly against Group Therapy, which is an iconic bar in 5 Points owned by former USC quarterback Steve Tannehill, one of the all-time great quarterbacks who beat Clemson and signed his name at midfield, and that almost created a ruckus at the annual Clemson South Carolina game. But Group Therapy, Hootie and the Blowfish played there, many famous acts. I can remember going there when I was in law school in the 80s. And Harpootlian's trying to shut them down, in addition to another bar called the Saloon. I don't expect that they will be shut down because they do serve food. Harpootlian wants the law to be written that they have to serve 60% food and no more than 40% alcohol. It's interesting, he uses the same plaintiff who's the president, I guess, of the Whaley Gardens Homeowners Association as the plaintiff to bring these cases. And my understanding is that they're starting that, these establishments are starting to have enough of Harpootlian trying to close their business down. I understand that the mayor is also against these type of claims because it chills economic development. More importantly, if you push these bars further out, then people will be driving to these bars instead of walking to them from the university. I certainly understand if there's underage drinking, bars should be sanctioned, penalized. I certainly understand if there's fighting or gang activity, that's totally unlawful activity. But just to try to shut them down simply because they serve a lot of alcohol, I think is in poor taste, especially when Dick Harpootlian hasn't always been 74, 75 years old and probably went to these bars when he was younger. I particularly like Bakari Sellers, who represents these establishments, his comment when he said, it's my hope that Dick Harpootlian's grandchildren will enjoy these establishments the same way that he did when he was of college age. So that was an interesting development over the week. Sadly, we had another high school or school shooting yesterday in Georgia where 2 students and 2 teachers died. When is enough going to be enough of this? Every one of these mass school shootings, and I saw it this morning on TV, 11 straight have used AR-type assault rifles that are semi-automatic. These are not hunting weapons. These are weapons of war. And these are being used by very young students. In this particular case, this student was red flagged last year by law enforcement from some of the postings that he put on the internet, and he was interviewed. His father was interviewed. His mother evidently has had some run-in with the law, a lot of crimes on forgery, and there's some other things that I read about her. A splintered family. The kid has had a lot of issues. This 14-year-old who was accused of killing these 2 students and 2 teachers. And by the way, he didn't die. He gave himself up. His father even after he was red flagged and interviewed by law enforcement, allegedly purchased an assault rifle, a semi automatic rifle that was used and shown on the school floor that killed these two innocent students and these brave teachers that are trained to get in between the gunman and the students when the shooting occurs. When is enough going to be enough? When do we have enough of these killings? Um, you know, guns kill people, people kill people. I believe that there should be a ban on these type of weapons of war. We can't continue to have this, and we can't just say, oh, our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families. Thoughts and prayers, they don't do anything right now to stop these school shootings. I'm not saying that there isn't a place for prayers and there isn't a place for compassion and empathy, but I have had enough of these school shootings. Thank God my children are old enough and are adults, and I don't have to worry about them in school. What is it about? I get it that there's kids that are bullied, and I get it that they want to take it out on them, but why are they going and just indiscriminately killing teachers and kids that have nothing to do with their disputes? It's just very depressing, and I think something needs to be done about it, and something needs to be done about it now. Don't just keep kicking the can down the road. Last night was the opening of the NFL season with a great game by the Kansas City Chiefs against the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson, who is the reigning MVP, he's had 2 MVPs so far in a 7-year career, just couldn't get it over the top to beat Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes and the Chiefs are the cream of the crop of the NFL. Patrick Mahomes has gone to 6 straight AFC championship games, 2 of which he's lost, but only lost in overtime. Until the Chiefs are defeated, they are the team to beat. I believe they have a very good chance of repeating for the 3rd straight time as Super Bowl champs. Patty Dasher just told me that the day after the shooting, and she lives in Georgia, a boy brought a gun to a nearby school. I mean, we have to figure out a way to prevent these guns from coming into school. Taylor Swift was at the game last night. We had this false rumor that they had scripted how they were going to break up at the end of September. I think it's great for the NFL. Taylor Swift has brought so many new fans to the NFL, and she picked the perfect team to fall in love with one of its players, the Kansas City Chiefs. Travis Kelce and his brother Jason just got paid $100 million for their podcast, Rising Heights, and she is great for football. She's great for the NFL. Travis better watch his P's and Q's. He better do nothing to cause Taylor Swift to break up with him or break up with her, because if he does, the wrath of the world will come down on him. So he better, be a good man to her, be kind, protect her, and as long as he does, it'll be a storybook romance. Lamar Jackson, on the other hand, great quarterback, but when the game's on the line, I'm not sure he's got the intestinal fortitude that Patrick Mahomes has and maybe some other quarterbacks. It's going to be an interesting year. There was a lot of holdouts. Tonight we have the Eagles playing in Rio de Janeiro. I think that was the worst decision in the world. What's going on there politically and crime-wise, I think it was very dangerous for the NFL to schedule a game there. They won't let the players bring their families there. They're resigned to staying in the hotel if they're not on the practice field. All for playing in London, playing in Munich, playing in Spain, but to go to some pretty dangerous third world countries, I think the NFL bit off more than it could chew there. We're going to talk a little bit about politics quickly. Certainly Tim Walz' brother came out this week, and he spoke against his brother Tim, said that He doesn't agree with his positions. He's a Trump supporter, which certainly is his right. He said that if the world knew about some things about Tim Walz, they would look at him differently. But what you're seeing is the move to the middle. It always happens after the primaries. Trump is getting further away from his pro-life stance and bragging that he was single-handedly destroyed Roe v. Wade, and now he's saying that if you elect me, I will be the greatest advocate for reproductive rights. He's also now saying that we don't have enough immigrants coming in this country, where he said for the last 10 years that we have too many immigrants in this country. He's now saying that he disagrees with Florida's law on the 6-week abortion ban. Good for him, because I also disagree with that law. He said he's going to vote against it. And now he's for recreational use of marijuana, which is not usually a position that conservatives would take. So he is flip-flopping. Similarly, Kamala Harris is flip-flopping. She is now not against fracking. She is for stronger immigration laws, obviously, to pass the act that was put forth by James Langford, the senator from Oklahoma, a Republican senator. She's now showing the border wall in her commercials. She's talking about tax credits and tax breaks, traditionally things that she was against. So what you see is these candidates trying to appeal to the middle, because that is the 5% that's going to flip the election one way or the other. It's interesting that they talk about her word salads that she uses if she has to speak off the cuff. Well, I heard Trump. Y'all need to look at this. Last night in a town hall meeting on Fox News, he was asked about how to ease the burden on child rearing and the need to have daycare and child care for workers. And his answer was that it would be like if you were in middle school and the teacher asked you to get up and explain the book Animal Farm, and you didn't read it, and you just rambled on about Animal Farm. It's a book about animals and how they get along, and the teacher would have said at the end, "You didn't read the book, did you? You would have been better off if you said I didn't read the book." Well, Trump gave a very word salad answer about tariffs and taxes, and there's going to be plenty of money to go around that will help you with your child care. The truth of the matter is both of them trip over their tongues, and I think we should have equal disgust when both Kamala and Trump give their word salad answers. I'm very disturbed of what's going on in Israel. I become more disturbed. The 6 hostages were recovered last week. Another one was recovered. They released the video today of the killing of one of the more famous hostages, because his parents were on TV all the time. It's a disgrace what Hamas is doing, but it's also a disgrace now that Bibi Netanyahu does not seem to want any kind of peace, because he knows if he declares peace, that the coalition government that he is a part of, which he can only govern because the far right has propped him up, they will break apart from him, and he will not become prime minister anymore and will continue to be prosecuted. There's been an ongoing prosecution trial of his corruption, and he is, I believe, going to sacrifice all of these hostages. He keeps on putting new demands for a ceasefire. Now he wants to not remove any troops between the border of Gaza and Egypt. It's called the Philadelphia Corridor, and he will not remove any of the troops, because he's saying that's where the weapons come from, Egypt underground into the Gaza Strip territory. He's also now bombing in the West Bank area where the PLO are. And I'm afraid if we don't get peace soon, that there is just going to be no chance for it. So I'm pretty disgusted with what's going on. I understand both sides of the issue, but people need to try to get to peace. I think President Biden has had enough with Netanyahu not really willing to make peace. Now, obviously, you need a partner to be able to make peace. Today, the judge in the New York hush money trial made a decision to defer Trump's sentence, guilty sentence, on the hush money trial over the Stormy Daniels matter and that payment that was made until after the election. He made the decision that we're too close to the election and that his sentence could have an effect one way or the other on the election, and so he's going to postpone it until after the election. I think that's a bad decision. I think now we are treating former President Trump differently than we are treating other citizens. I think he should have sentenced him in July, which would have been further away from the election as was originally scheduled, and now this is just going to go on indefinitely. No other state convicted felon gets this kind of deference. I think it's a bad precedent. College football is getting eroded. We are seeing the demise of college football with the NIL money. Last year, I was told that Spencer Rattler, the former quarterback for USC, the Carolina Gamecocks, made more last year than he's making now in the NFL as a fifth-round draft pick. Some players are getting over $2 million. Ohio State supposedly has close to $30 million of name, image, and likeness money. That's what the NIL is. I think the transfer portal is killing college football because what you are seeing, there's no continuity, no development of team. Look at Florida State. They've lost their first two games. The quarterback who used to be a quarterback of Clemson University went to Oregon State. Ogunkunle, I think his name is now with Florida State. He's 0-2. You have players that are going to all different programs simply because of the money. We had some good games last week. The LSU University of Southern California game was great. So happy to see Brian Kelly go 3 straight years since he's been at LSU and losing his home opener. Just think he's a bad coach for the SEC. He's just not that type of coach. He's more of a northern coach. They blew the game and let a touchdown up at the end of the game. So it's going to be interesting to see how South Carolina and Georgia bounce back. Looking forward to some really good football games this weekend. I saw one of the best concerts last week with Renee and my daughter Sydney. Hootie and the Blowfish played at the Capitol Center. Amazing, we were able to get tickets the night of the concert, paid $50, and we were like 20 rows from the floor. Somebody must have lost their butt on those tickets. But Hootie, Darius Rucker, and the band were so good. It was so much nostalgia to see them. And Edward McCain is such a great South Carolina singer, and I was really surprised to see Collective Soul. What a really good rock band, hard rock band. It just was a great evening. They played all their hits. Hootie sang Wagon Wheel. They even played a Led Zeppelin song. Just really impressive that a band still sounds that good 35 years later. Darius's voice is so strong, so powerful, so unique. Dawn Staley was there. She was acknowledged. Obviously, the Hootie and the Blowfish are Carolina graduates and big Carolina fans, and so that was a really great concert to see. We have the presidential debate coming next week. They finally agreed on it. It's going to be in Philadelphia. ABC is going to moderate the debate. Trump is already saying that ABC is rigged for Kamala Harris. The one thing is they are going to have muted mics, and Kamala Harris did not want to have muted microphone because she believes that Trump will not be able to contain himself and will say rude things. I think this is going to be a really bellwether event. If Kamala is able to hold her own with Trump and all the abuse that he's going to heap on her. And if Trump can hold his own with all the things that she's going to say about him being a convicted felon and all the different things that are going on about January 6th and those things, I think it'll sway the election one way or the other. This week, Liz Cheney came out and she said that she's actually going to vote for Kamala Harris. That's a huge, huge thing. She will make a big difference in a lot of swing states, a lot of the Rust Belt states, certainly in Pennsylvania. Interesting that John McCain's son, Jimmy McCain, also came out this week based on the comments that Trump had made about his father not being a hero because he doesn't like his heroes captured. But what happened at the Arlington Cemetery in Section 60, he came out and said that he is not voting for Donald Trump, that he will be voting for Kamala Harris. His sister, Meghan McCain, said that she will not be voting for Trump, but she cannot vote for Kamala Harris. So we're starting to see a lot of Republicans who are middle-of-the-road Republicans, moderate Republicans, staking out their difference. I want to acknowledge everybody here. Patty Dasher, a really good listener and good friend of mine. Amanda Swafford Allred said, how do you know where they really stand? I don't know. You're probably referring to the politicians. I don't know. I think they'll say anything. I think they're transactional depending on who their audience is. And I think you got to listen to them over time and maybe get a feel for it. Look, you're never going to agree 100% with the person you vote for, but you're going to agree on the more important issues that are important issues to you. To me, the important issue is reproductive rights. To me, the issue is I do want more border security. To me, I want to make sure that we have a safety net for people that need help, not for people who just want a free government handout. So I have a lot of different needs. I want to have a very strong Middle East policy. I believe that we should not permit Russia to encroach any further than what it's been doing, and I think we should push back and support Ukraine. And I'm a big NATO supporter. So that's one of the things. Kimberly Kovac said she works in Pittsburgh. She saw the security personnel at a local hotel where the VP is staying. I think for the debate prep, not sure. Child care is so expensive for so many working families. Almost a spouse has to work to almost pay for the child care. There's almost a trade-off of I'm almost working for nothing because I'm paying for the child care. So there should be a really good child care tax credit. Casey Odell, I do agree with you. I can't stand the NIL. Amanda Swafford also said she still hasn't seen a video that happened. I don't know what that refers to. We do have some questions. Hey, Lisa. Lisa Neshat is a neighbor of mine. So there is a trial or legal matter that's been going on in Washington, in Maryland, called the Adnan Syed ruling in Maryland, where the Supreme Court said it's a conviction that happened in the late 90s, a killing and a kidnapping and a real heinous crime. Somebody needs to get a new hearing on whether he is actually guilty of the crimes charged, and it's caused a lot of political unrest. Does look like he's innocent, or there shouldn't have been enough evidence to convict him. Not sure that the new prosecutor will bring the case back up for a new hearing on his sentencing. He's out of prison right now. Not sure he's going to go back in. Morgan says, with Eric being from PA and my knowledge of the justice system, what's my thoughts on the Commonwealth justice system, and can you explain the difference? We have Commonwealths, obviously, in Kentucky, Puerto Rico, Virginia, Pennsylvania. There's not really that much a difference. The clerk of courts in Pennsylvania are called prothonotary. They have different rules. In South Carolina, our South Carolina rules of civil procedure mirror the federal rules of civil procedure. South Carolina has Pennsylvania has some very unique state court rules similar to Louisiana, which is under the Napoleonic French Code. Believe it or not, it's the only state in our country that goes by the Napoleonic Code and doesn't go by normal rules of civil procedure. But by and large, it's pretty much the same. The difference is Pennsylvania has criminal courts separate from its civil courts. In South Carolina, all judges hear both criminal and civil cases. I like the way Pennsylvania separates them. So there's some good things that happen with Pennsylvania, the way they run their justice system. Casey Odell asked me, after a verdict is read, does polling a jury actually make for strong arguments against a potential future allegation of jury tampering? It does. It carries a lot of weight because the person has to stand up in court, in public, raise their hand and say, I gave my verdict based on my own conscience without any pressure or duress. And so Casey then asked, well, why wouldn't this be an automatic process? It's not, because sometimes defendants who are convicted, they would rather the jury not be polled and then later on try to go and interview the jurors, find out that something happened in the jury room, and then make the motion for a new trial based on juror misconduct or a juror tampering issue. And it's much more powerful if the jury hasn't been polled. If they've been polled, then the jury starts to change their mind, and I've already given an opinion that I don't like jurors to be subject to all kinds of direct and indirect pressure after a trial, listening to legal analysts like me and other people talk about it, and then their mind starts to waver a little bit. So that's an issue. Amanda asked me, with this being an election season, have I ever considered running for a seat in South Carolina? I have. I've considered to run for the Attorney General, but I think I can do more good on the outside. I also have a really big mouth that gets me in trouble more than I would like, and more certainly than my wife would like and my partner Ronnie would like. So I'm not sure I'd be able to keep my mouth shut. But no, I would love someday to hold a political office. I believe that I would be honest with the people, and I believe that I could do a good job. But I'm not sure the South Carolina is ready for somebody like me who's from the North, who's Jewish, and is pretty outspoken. But that's a very kind question that you asked, Amanda. Let's see, what else? Oh, is everything settled in the Maori Beach case? Karen just asked. Everything is settled except the case by Maori's family against the Parker Convenience Store for conspiracy, for hiring investigators who were trying to find out dirt about the family. I think that's going to be a huge trial by Mark Tinsley, who's representing Maori Beach's family. So I think they're going to end up with a boatload of money, because I think Mark's going to smoke them in front of a jury. Kimberly Kovach asked, how do I feel about the Trump and RFK Jr. collaboration? Disgusting. One, I think that RFK is completely nuts. I think there probably was a parasite worm that ate away his brain. If you see what he's done with animals, with the bear cub, and how he threw a bear cub that was killed after he took it off the road as roadkill in upstate New York and drove it to New York City and then threw it in Central Park. His position on vaccinations and government conspiracy theories, I think that makes him more aligned with Trump. But I think that's a marriage of convenience. Certainly he disappointed his family, every single one of his siblings, every single offspring of the Kennedy tree has come out against RFK. I think Cheryl Hines, who was on the Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry David's wife, is certainly feeling the backlash of marrying RFK and going to some of his campaign events. I just really am disgusted that he turned his back on his father, RFK, who was killed by Sirhan Sirhan in 1967. I think it's just a disgrace. Casey Odell, thanks for all your support. Morgan Sanders says she moved from Texas to Delaware this summer, and the daycare tripled for her. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Janet Reese says, thanks for the comments. I appreciate it so much. So that is it. I had 3 good interviews this week that are going to be coming out on my Good Skill podcast. I interviewed a history teacher at River Bluff High School called Michael Burgess. We discussed a case that involved Willie Leaphart, a 16-year-old black young man that was murdered in the Lexington County Jail by a mob in 1890 for a rape that he did not commit. They broke into the jail. They threatened the sheriff and the warden of the jail. They put him out. They brought him out from his cell. They shot him 200 times and then 16 more times when they pulled him outside. I think you're going to really enjoy that podcast. I also did an episode with a noted plastic surgeon, Dr. Marcelo Hockman from Charleston, South Carolina. Really neat physician who is at the forefront of fighting big hospitals when it concerns certificates of need on where you put imaging centers and surgical centers, and you'll see that he is really a leader. Those are the kind of people that I like to interview. I also interviewed one of my favorite people. His name is Kevin Chief Hendricks, one of the all-time best Gamecock defensive ends in the 80s during Black Magic with the Joe Morrison era. We talk in depth about his career with the Washington Redskins and then how you migrate from a professional football player to life, and he became successful in the construction industry. But we talk about what happened in the 80s that a lot of people probably forgot, which is the steroid scandal that came down on South Carolina when Sports Illustrated did a big expose, a 20-page expose, when former defensive lineman Tommy Chaikin came out and said that how much steroids he was doing and how it ruined him psychologically, and the effect that it had on the Gamecock program with Joe Morrison, the coach, getting fired, with Bob Markham, the athletic director, getting fired, Jim Washburn, the head defensive line coach, being indicted. We talked about the Tank Black scandal. He was the wide receiver coach for Sterling Sharp, and his criminal problems of stealing money from his clients. But I am so friendly with so many of the players then. I worked as an academic tutor for the football program, and I got the honor of training in the football gym with Coach Keith Kephart and Coach Ken Taylor. My good friends, and I'm friends with him today. Chief, you'll love hearing him talk. Kurt, Scotty Windsor, Luther, David Poinsett that we called Pork Chop, Kenny Boobda Haynes, all these players, Brendan McCormick, really great guys. And I think you'll really like it. My book, I'm now in the process of getting it bound. We did all the photos, expecting that it's going to be out in the first part of October. I'm really excited about it. So I know I talked too long today, almost 38 minutes. Sorry about that. Just had a lot to talk about. I wish everybody has a great weekend. Really excited about the fall weather and football. The weather coming out in the morning with the dogs is just so great. So everybody be safe. Guard your guns. Lock them up. Keep them away from your kids. Tell everybody you love them. I am representing somebody, unfortunately, that is accused of drinking and then driving, and unfortunately killed somebody at a stoplight. It's very sad. No history at all of criminality, no history at all of driving accidents. And everybody just please, obviously the facts haven't been developed yet, and these are all accusations, but everybody please recognize that if you are drinking, get somebody to drive you. Please call an Uber. Call a friend, call a family member. You know, there's so many people who lose their lives. Not necessarily, it's yes, the people who are drinking, but there's other people who are innocent people. In this particular case, you know, somebody did die who was sitting at a light, and it's really sad. So my public service messages are for the weapons that are happening in school, and also please don't drink and drive. With that said, EB out.